We closed off the previous chapter by asking, are you holding on to the right tools for the impact that you want to have? Are you holding on to the right tools, skills, mindsets, and attitudes? What might you need to drop, but also what might you need to pick up? And what that you have in your toolbox can you repurpose and reuse in this rapidly changing world? And yes, you may think that I don't want to be a jack of all trades. I want to do the thing. I need to do the thing that I'm trained to do in the way that I'm trained to do it. I don't want to be a master of none. But somewhere along the way, we stopped using the full saying. You see, the full saying is actually jack of all trades, master of none, oftentimes better than a master of one. Range, depth, and breadth all matter, especially if we don't have a clear view of what the future holds and the fire is sprinting up the hill towards us. Watch the previous chapter if you don't get the fire reference. The world is changing and we need to keep up. And yes, we need to specialize. We need specialists in this world, but you also, even if you're a specialist, need to consciously consider what is in your toolbox, what are you filling it up with, and how will you meet the change? You see, the world of work is a little bit like alien tennis. As Robin Hogarth said, the world is not golf, and most of it isn't even tennis. Much of the world is Martian or alien tennis. You can see the players on the court with balls and rackets, but nobody has shared the rules. It's up to you to derive them, and they're subject to change without notice. The world is changing, and we need to be changing with it. Just over 2 years ago, I dropped my tools and I loosened my grip on what I knew for certain because I realized that I wasn't just watching alien tennis, I was going to be playing it. For some backstory, my first job sucked. It was awful. It was a terrible place to work, and that set me on the path to becoming an employee experience design specialist. I firmly believe that work does not have to suck, and now, after almost a decade of doing this, I've got a pretty comprehensive body of proof that companies and people can thrive for mutual benefit. So, back in time, in 2014, I founded an employee experience design firm. And fast forward again to 2020, the pandemic has just hit. I'm still running the employee experience design firm, and the world is now shifting palpably. And I realized that the world of work was not going to be the same post-pandemic. And I wanted to be there in the trenches on the other side. So I chose to go back in full time into organizations and to join the teams helping businesses optimize for human experience in hybrid and remote setups. I had a few superbly useful tools that I could take with me into this, but I also had some that I really needed to drop. And when we're talking about change and dropping our tools and making an impact, it's very easy to get caught in motion and not in action. And perhaps you're familiar with James Clear's Atomic Habits. And in Atomic Habits, he speaks about motion versus action. Motion, speaking to a personal trainer. Action, doing 10 squats. Motion, researching writing tips or generative AI prompts for your blog post. Action is writing 10 sentences or editing the piece that the AI wrote for you. Motion is downloading the meditation app. Action is doing 5 to 10 minutes of meditation. Action is hard and it requires effort. And we very often kid ourselves into thinking that we're in action when actually we're in motion. Because motion is comfortable, it's easy, it's safe, and it can make us feel like we're making progress when we're actually not. Admittedly, often we need motion as a precursor to action, but be aware of getting caught in motion and never actually moving into action. Because action is what takes us into the uncomfortable, the new, and the unfamiliar. And if you're optimizing for comfort over impact, then you can stay in motion. But if you're truly trying to optimize for impact over comfort in your world of work, you have to move into action. And yes, change is daunting and it's scary, but it's also constant and it's uncomfortable, which is okay because discomfort and change go hand in hand. So often we have to embrace discomfort in the face of change. Being comfortably uncomfortable, even uncomfortably uncomfortable, is not a bad thing. Don't shy away from discomfort or action. Don't shy away from motion, from action, and get stuck in motion. So consider where you might have been stuck in motion and not in action, or where you've been avoiding the discomfort of change. And while you're doing that, beware of the sunk cost mindset. So when you're answering the questions, where have I been stuck in motion and not moving into action? And where have I been avoiding the discomfort of change? Beware of the sunk cost mindset. And the sunk cost mindset is our tendency to follow through on an endeavor if we've already invested time, effort, energy, or money into it, whether or not the current costs outweigh the actual benefits. You see, we're often loath to walk away from or change track because we don't want to lose our initial investment, even though it's already gone and it cannot be recovered. And we can very often be like this with our careers and our approaches to work. I've already invested so much into this. I've done this for so long. This is what I know. How could I possibly walk away now? And it's easy to think along Winston Churchill's lines of never give in, never, 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 when we're stuck in sunk cost perspective. But this isn't actually the whole quote. The full quote is never give in, never, 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 except to convictions of honor and good sense. Knowing when to shift, making the shift, moving from comfort to impact and from motion to action, dropping your tools when it makes sense. Convictions of honor and good sense.